Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are standing ankle-deep in meltwater on the edge of a prehistoric lake that seems to breathe before the sky decides to fall. The sun hasn't even bothered to show up yet. A haze curls off the ice like steam from your coffee, and somewhere beneath the surface, yes, beneath all that frozen silence, there's a sound. A whistle. Faint. Rhythmic. Like something ancient clearing its throat before it storms. You probably won't survive. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. The lake shivers just before dawn, and you're out there in it wrapped in a wet, mammoth-hide shawl that smells like patience and mold. You shuffle along the rocky rim, feet numb, nose numb, thinking about how in the time before clocks people measured the world with their ears. Behind you, a half-collapsed shelter leans into a windless stillness. It's made of tusks, flat stones, and the kind of silence you only hear when something's holding its breath. The elders used to tell you that if the fish didn't whistle before a storm, you were in trouble, but no one tells you anymore. You're the only one left who listens this way. The sky bruises slowly to gray. You crouch palm to the water, and there it is, a faint vibration. Not just in your hand, but in your teeth. A hollow, pulsing note somewhere between a flute and the whimper of something trying not to be noticed. You'd call it music if it wasn't so scared. Historians still debate whether these low-frequency pulses sometimes recorded in modern lakes before big weather events are natural emissions or early biological signals. Seismic noise, subglacial shifts, the air pressure warning fish before we notice. Or maybe it's nothing more than the stretching groan of the Earth's own frozen bones. Still, you lean closer. The water slaps against your knuckles like a reminder not to get too confident. You remember the story of the man with too many questions. He followed the sound into the lake and came out quiet years later with half a beard and a fear of bubbles. No one ever asked what he saw. They just stopped using words near him. There's movement under the ice. Not fast, not slow, just intentional. You catch a glimmer, silver, oblong, a tail flicking once, then still. That's no trick of the light. You weren't imagining it. The fish are here and they're humming again. You squat and wait. Minutes pass. The clouds above yawn wider, lazy and menacing. Thunder yawns back. Still no wind. Still the whistle. Maybe it's not just before storms they do this because they know what we don't. Or maybe they're bored. Who whistles at the dawn of a potential extinction event? Fun fact. Certain modern fish, like the midshipman, actually hum to attract mates. And yes, some of them do it at night, making entire harbors sound like haunted wine glasses. But in this lake there are no harbors, no cities, just you, the water, and something stirring in a language older than time. You remember an old insult from your childhood fish throat. It meant someone who mumbled lies before the storm broke. You hadn't thought about that in years, but now it makes a twisted sort of sense. If fish whistle before weather and we don't believe them, who's really lying? Behind you, the shelter creaks. You resist the urge to look. Let the dead sleep. You're not here for them. You're here because your dreams have been wet with static lately. Dreams full of soundless motion and open mouths with no noise except for the whistle that follows you into waking. A sharp crack splits the ice a few feet to your left. Reflexively, you freeze. It's nothing. Probably. Or maybe it's the lake making room for more breath. There's something thrilling about the idea that the land itself might be aware. And just like that, the sound stops. The silence after is louder than anything else, louder than memory, louder than footsteps, louder than your own careful breathing. You look up. The sky has gone absolutely still. No birds, no wind, no storm, just that held breath. You whisper, "Why'd you stop?" But the water doesn't answer. You wonder if you missed it. If that sound was a warning, not of what's coming, but of what's already here. Either way, you rise. Brush ice crystals off your knees and step back from the edge. Because even if they're just fish, and even if it's just weather, there are times when listening is the most dangerous thing you can do. And yet you'll be back tomorrow. Because they might whistle again, and you want to know what they're really trying to say. You return before the sun again earlier this time. The wind hasn't stirred even a sigh, and the lake lies trapped under a filmy skin of black ice, new, delicate, and ready to betray you. You test it with the flat of your foot and feel it moan faintly, but it holds. Good enough. You shuffle to the spot where the whistling stopped yesterday. Something inside you aches to hear it again. You're not even sure why, maybe because silence isn't what it used to be. Not here. Not since you learned to listen beneath it. This time, you go lower. You slip a flat bone scraper under the surface and chisel out a hole. It steams slightly around the edges like the lake is surprised to be touched. You lie flat on your belly and ease your head to the water's opening, and you listen. At first, there's nothing. Just the hollow suck of your own breath, the faint creak of your joints, a rumble in your stomach that sounds way too much like distant thunder. You're about to give up when it starts. A whistle, not high, not shrill, but low and drawn out like a cello string being bowed beneath a mile of snow. You don't hear it so much as feel it in your jaw and your ribs and the soft roof of your mouth. It doesn't move the air. It moves you. You blink hard. There in the blackness under the ice, a shimmer. A school of pale eyeless fish glides past ghostly shapes long and thin, their scales lit faintly by bioluminescent pulses. The sound thickens as they pass, like they're weaving the note with their bodies. They're not flapping or gulping, their gliding mouths closed fins still. The sound is coming from them, but not through them, as if they're conducting something that isn't theirs. You suddenly wonder if it's the lake using the fish as instruments. Historians still debate whether such deep-pitched infrasonic phenomena existed in glacial environments. Some say it's pressure release. Others argue for biological adaptation, a way to communicate in complete darkness where light is meaningless and only vibration tells the truth. You whisper to yourself, they're singing, and immediately feel like an idiot. But it's true. There's rhythm in it. A pulse. Not quite melody, not quite language, just something you wouldn't want to interrupt. Your fingers inch forward to the hole just close enough to disturb the water. The moment you touch it, the sound flickers. The fish scatter like a flock of birds in reverse, spiraling out into the dark, taking the hum with them. You mutter an apology. The lake doesn't care. But then you notice something else. Beneath your elbow, pressed into the frost, are concentric ridges, tiny circles fanned like ripples. Only you didn't make them, and they're not recent. You brush away the surface snow and find more patterned into the earth beneath. Ancient campsites, sometimes left behind tool marks or shell mounds or ash rings. But sound rings. That's new. You lay your hand over them and feel absurdly like you're eavesdropping on a conversation that ended 10,000 years ago. Fact for the night: modern Antarctic ice fish have antifreeze proteins in their blood. Not related to this, of course, but it does mean fish can survive things humans can barely describe. You sit back wet and cold and squint across the lake. There, just visible through a frame of stunted pine, is the hill where the old-timers said storms used to sleep. You always thought that was poetic nonsense until now, because as the fish vanished, something began to move on that hill. A low wave of dark cloud, slow as thought, unfurling down its spine like a bear stretching after hibernation. You don't hear it yet, but you know it's coming. There's something about how the fish moved like they knew they had a schedule to keep, like they'd rehearsed the soundtrack to this storm before you ever noticed the sky. Off topic, but important. In 2008, scientists recorded fin whales producing tones so low they could travel across entire oceans. That's not spooky. That's magnificent. And if whales can talk to the world, maybe these fish are just doing their smaller version. The first gust hits your back like a shove. You turn. The lake is gone dead still again. No whistle, no movement. just the hole steaming faintly like a mouth that forgot what it meant to speak. You pack your tools, wipe your palms on the fur at your thighs, and begin the trudge back. Behind you, the first snowflakes swirl, catching in your footprints. The lake whistles no more tonight. You whisper to the ice, "I'll be back," even though you're not sure you should. You find the cave by accident. The wind drove you off your usual path, and your frozen ankles steered you toward shelter. What looked like just another overhang turned into a gaping mouth carved in basalt edges smoothed by 1,000 Ice Age winters. A place the mammoth hunters called Throat Stone. You don't remember why. You just remember they never slept here. The air inside is warmer, but only in the sense that you're no longer being politely flayed by wind. It smells like old breath and wet fur. The walls are slick and the silence is so complete it feels like sound is being sucked into the stone. Every step echoes, then echoes again, as if the cave is trying to mimic you but can't quite get it right. You click your tongue. The response takes nearly a full second, and when it comes back, it doesn't sound like you. It sounds deeper and slightly unsure, like it's still deciding whether to answer at all. You crouch. There, pooled in a shallow depression, is a puddle of meltwater. Not remarkable until you realize it's vibrating. Tiny ripples, almost imperceptible. They pulse in time with your breath. Then they stop. Then they start again, but now they're ahead of your breath. You freeze because you're not breathing. Somewhere deeper in the cave, a whistle starts. The same one as under the lake, low, drawn out, and almost embarrassed to be heard. But now it echoes off every surface, bouncing back, warped and layered, like 50 fish are trying to out-hum each other in a canyon. You press your hand to the stone. It thrums like a frozen drumskin. You speak aloud, "Storm's coming," and feel ridiculous. But the cave doesn't laugh. It just answers with another whistle, a beat longer than the first, like a question. Historians still debate whether prehistoric people used caves like this as natural resonators to detect distant weather patterns, or whether they just stored food here and hoped the bears were hibernating elsewhere. There's evidence of soot, yes, but also small piles of stones arranged in arcs that make no sense unless you're trying to listen. You edge deeper, passing under a limestone arch where the sound concentrates. There, carved shallowly into the wall, is an image, not a fish, not a storm. It's ripples, circular, expanding, like sound drawn with rock. The odd part: the ripples aren't centered. They're off to the side, suggesting the artist didn't want you to see the source, just feel the spread. That's not decoration, that's communication. Or warning. Odd fact of the night: there's a frog in the Amazon that can hear with its lungs. No ears, just body resonance, which makes your sudden itch in the chest feel a little more prehistoric than you'd like. A gust tunnels through the cave entrance and sends a squeal of air behind you. It gets caught in the chamber and changes. What entered as a scream exits your ears as a whispering tone, like someone practicing an ocarina from inside a snowbank. You take a breath. The puddle vibrates again, then stops. You crouch beside it, dip your fingers, and feel it chill you through to your elbow. And then just for a second, it whistles back. You scramble upright, heart leaping somewhere near your collarbone. It wasn't loud, it wasn't melodic, but it responded. Not to the wind, not to your footsteps, to you. That's when you see the bones. A pile of them to the right, stacked with awkward carefish vertebrae mostly. Clean, hollow, arranged in rows like flutes that forgot how to play. Some have holes. Not natural breaks punched through intentionally. The implication sends your scalp prickling. Could they have been trying to replicate the fish's sound, or answer it? You lean in, take a deep breath, and blow across the largest one. The sound that comes out is not beautiful. It's wobbly, like a cracked seashell sneezing. But the puddle responds. A single ripple. You drop the bone. Not out of fear, okay, a little fear, but mostly because you don't want to push it. The cave has rules and you're still just guessing. Behind you, the entrance is darker than before. Storms do that, press the light out of everything. You decide it's time to go. You back out slowly, passing the carved ripples, the cold puddle, and the knot flute bones. The wind is picking up again. You can hear it carrying something distant. Not thunder, not quite, it's lower, almost humming. The cave behind you doesn't echo your steps as you leave. It just listens. You don't set out to find the mammoth carvings. No one ever really finds them. They find you. That's how this land works. When you're cold enough, tired enough, and just smart enough to stop pretending you're in charge, the old things make themselves known. It's just past midday. The sun is pale and apologetic, like it regrets showing up. You're moving along the exposed ridge above the cave boots, crunching through a crust of ice-cracked shale. The wind is picking at your hood like it wants to say something but doesn't know how. Then you see the tusk, just one half buried in the rock, curled like the hook of a question no one ever got around to answering. You kneel, brush at the frozen loam, and there it is, a flat stone with deep grooves. Not decorative, directional, lines pointing towards something. You follow them, half expecting a trap. 30 meters later, you see the wall, a natural stone face maybe 10 meters long, and just as high, shielded from the worst weather by an outcropping of overgrown lichen and stunted pine. At first, it looks like old scratches, the kind you'd blame on wolves or time. But when you look again with the side of your eyes, you see the order. Mammoths, dozens of them. Not realistic, not detailed, but unmistakable. The tusk swoops the round belly, the impossibly soft eyes rendered in nothing but stone gouges. And above them, sweeping lines that move with the grain of the rock. You trace one with your mittened finger and realize it isn't a drawing of wind. It's a storm. You sit back hard enough to jar your tailbone. Historians still debate whether prehistoric humans were capable of representing invisible concepts like wind or weather in their art, or if we're just projecting our own metaphors. But this storm isn't metaphor. It's movement drawn as memory. And the mammoths aren't just standing in it. They're looking at it. You blink, try to unsee it, fail. Each scratched mammoth is turned toward the same streaking arc of lines above them. Not panicking, not running, watching, waiting. Why would animals turn to face the wind? In some modern elephant herds, matriarchs are known to raise their trunks before storms, sniffing the air, reading the barometric shifts like a poem. Maybe the mammoths did the same. Maybe this wall is a record of when the wind changed and the animals already knew. You take out a scrap of dried meat, not because you're hungry, but because you're suddenly aware that you're very much made of meat and the wind has gotten awfully quiet again. There's a hollow nearby, and you edge toward it, boots sliding a little. It's nothing special at first glance, just a bowl-shaped dip in the snow. But in the center is a patch of exposed ground ringed with smooth stones, and at the center of that is a small pile of ash, old, dead, protected, a fire pit. Not from your name, not from your parents' time, maybe not even from your species. Fun fact, Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens overlapped for thousands of years in this region, sometimes peacefully, sometimes less so. One thing they shared: fire. The other, an obsession with what the animals were trying to say. You sit near the pit. The air is heavy now, thicker, charged. You glance back at the stone wall. The mammoths still watch the sky. You say aloud, "Did the fish warn you too?" and immediately feel like a lunatic. But let's be real, if you've made it this far into the Ice Age with your brain intact, you already passed the border between sane and sensible. The wind shifts again. You hear a sound, not the lake whistle this time, but a low pulsing thud, like someone knocking on a hollow tree from the inside. You turn toward the noise. Nothing. But the pit's ashes twitch, a few flecks lifting in the air and settling again. Storm's coming. You rise. One last look at the wall. One last glance at the mammoths, who were somehow smarter than all of us. They didn't run. They just listened. The fish skull is lighter than you expected. You find it while turning over a rock slab near the river bend, tucked inside a groove like it had been gently laid there, not buried, not forgotten, just waiting. It rolls into your hand like something meant to be found. At first glance, it's ordinary. Broad headplate, sharp fin ridges, tiny fossilized eye sockets. But then you flip it over, and there it is. A chamber. Not hollow, like most old bone, but intricate thin walls spiraling in like the inside of a nautilus, or the resonance chamber of a flute. You tilt it back and forth. The wind threads through it with a whisper, then a low note. The skull hums. You laugh softly because that's the only response your brain can conjure that won't get you committed. But there's no denying it. This thing sounds. You hold it to your ear like a seashell. But instead of ocean noise, you get silence. Then faintly, a whistle. Not from the wind, from inside. Historians still debate whether early fish species developed such internal structures for acoustic purposes, or if these formations were a side effect of buoyancy or breeding displays. But when you press your thumb to the back ridge and blow gently, the chamber responds. A rising tone, thin but steady. You sit down hard on a patch of frostbitten moss. There's no tool mark on this skull, no sign of human tampering. So the structure had to be natural, a biological echo chamber, not exactly a flute, not exactly lungs, just music in bone form. You remember that weird line someone once said around a fire? Everything alive is just a song waiting to become fossilized. You thought they were drunk. They probably were, but now it feels less poetic and more diagnostic. You fish around your pack for the other pieces you've gathered. Several more fish bones each with odd pockmarks and curling canals inside. You try blowing across one nothing. The second, just a puff of air. The third, a whistle, sharp, 2 notes. You pause. Blow again, same result. A single pitch, then a second slightly lower, like a descending signal. Fun fact. Some modern fish have sonic muscles they can contract against their swim bladders, producing rapid thumping or droning sounds. Combine that with the right internal cavities, and it's not impossible that certain Ice Age fish literally whistled as part of their social behavior, or as you're starting to suspect as a warning. But here's the strange part, none of these bones are from the same species. Not even close. You've got predators and scavengers, tiny fish big ones, shallow dwellers and bottom crawlers. But several of them developed similar chambers. That's not random, that's convergent. It's as if every kind of fish in this lake over generations gradually became part whistle, part survivor. You turn the skull again and peer into its mouth, or where the mouth should be. It's sealed. No jaw, no teeth, just fused bone, and the chamber, like the creature didn't even need to eat, only warn. Or sing, you whisper, not sure which thought disturbs you more. You pack the skulls gently and mark the stone with a charcoal X. The wind is picking up again, and somewhere far off from the direction of the cave you hear it. Not just the hum, a new note, a trill, higher, urgent. It cuts out quickly, but it was there. And it wasn't wind. It wasn't echo. It was a call. You heard the story when you were still small enough to fit inside a mammoth-hide pouch. A boy who could smell a storm hours before the sky even changed. Not because he was magical, not because he was cursed, because he carried stones that whispered to him when the world started to shift. Everyone laughed, of course. They said he licked the rocks too often. Said he was just scared of thunder and needed an excuse. But even the laughing ones admitted he always knew. You think of him now as you crouch beside the lake with your hand full of pebbles. Not just any pebbles. Smooth ones, flat and gray-blue, taken from the same spot where the fish like to whistle. You haven't heard the whistle today. The lake's holding its tongue. But your fingers twitch. One of the stones buzzes, not vibrates, not like a phone. More like it sighs against your skin, like it just exhaled something it didn't want you to hear. You roll it across your palm. It's cool, but only just. You bring it to your ear. Nothing. You tap it against another. Still nothing. But your heart is racing like it remembers something your mind hasn't caught up to. Fact of the night, certain rocks do actually respond to pressure. Piezoelectricity, they call it. Quartz especially. Squeeze it hard enough, it'll give off a tiny electric charge and sometimes a sound. Of course, you're not exactly carrying a geology lab. You're just cold tired. and listening for whispers from the prehistoric world. The boy's name was Tellin, or maybe Teleg. It changes depending on who's telling it. But everyone agrees he wore his stones in a belt made of old fish hide. He called them storm teeth, said they itched before the sky did. You squint toward his clouds. They're not dark, not yet, but they look confused, like they haven't decided whether to fall apart or fall on you. You shuffle the pebbles again. One gives a faint click, a sharp one. You drop it. It skips once, twice, then sits still in the snow. The others start to warm. No, really, warm. You check your pack, nothing else generating heat. No fire, no sun, just the lake, the clouds, and a handful of fish-whispering rocks that might be remembering Tellin's name. You sit. Not because you're calm, but because your knees don't want to be involved in whatever happens next. Historians still debate whether so-called weather charms found near ancient campsites had functional value or were just ritual tokens. But when the charms in question contain quartz-polished copper and oddly porous fish vertebrae, you start wondering if the line between superstition and science was never as thick as we thought. A breeze threads through the trees, sharp. Carried in it is a sound. Not the fish hum, not the cave whisper. A clink. You follow it. Down the shoreline, nestled under a snowdrift, is a cairn, 5 stones stacked deliberately with one fishbone, laid across the top like a delicate little bridge. A message. A marker, or just someone else listening. You crouch. Your presence disturbs nothing. The structure was waiting. You pluck the bone and hold it to the sky. It's smooth, no holes like the flutes, but the way it catches the wind, you can feel it. A subtle oscillation, like it's measuring the air. Fun fact, infrasound travels better through solids than gases. That's why elephants can detect distant storms through the ground. Maybe these bones, these stones, these storm teeth were doing the same for early humans or for fish. The clouds darken, the lake stiffens again. You feel it before you hear it. A groan, low and wide like the earth beneath the lake, is rolling its shoulders. The bone in your hand thrums once. You pocket it, gently, respectfully. Because Tellin was right. The stones don't lie. The river was never supposed to run uphill. But that's what it looks like now, like someone flipped the valley's instructions overnight. You stand at the edge of the old Ford boots planted in what should be slow southbound meltwater. But the current's gone rogue. It churns north now, fast and biting, carving new paths like it's late for something. The fish are gone. You know, because you've been tracking their whistle for days. And this morning, when the rocks buzzed and the clouds sagged low, you ran to the water's edge, hoping for one more note. But all you got was silence and this strange backward flow. The banks are collapsing where the ice used to hold them. Trees lean like confused drunks, their roots exposed, dangling helplessly above the rushing water. You kneel, scoop a palmful, and taste it. Bitter, silt-heavy. This isn't just snowmelt, it's upstream snowmelt, which means something massive cracked open upstream, an ice wall, a glacial dam. Something ancient just gave up holding back. Historians still debate whether events like these sudden glacial floods known as jökulhlaups could happen quickly enough to reshape entire ecosystems in a single day. But when you're standing in one ankle deep in yesterday's geography, the debate feels kind of irrelevant. You spot a shimmer near a collapsed bank of fish. Just one. It flails confused, trapped in a new bend of the river that didn't exist yesterday. You wade closer, grab it gently. It's slick and trembling, more bone than body. And it's not making a sound. You whisper, "Where's your whistle?" It stares at you. And then with one sudden twitch, it slips from your hand and disappears into the churn. You stand there for a while, river soaking up your knees, trying to understand what it means when the water itself turns traitor. Off topic, but strange. There's a glacier in Antarctica that bleeds red, iron-rich water like Earth got cut and forgot how to clot. This river feels the same, wounded, leaking secrets. You walk along the new shoreline. The mud is soft, studded with debris, pine branches, bits of fur, a hollowed bird's skull. But more than anything, you notice the absence, no fish bones, no flutes, no hum. Whatever storm is coming, the fish didn't stay to warn you. You find a ridge, climb it, and scan the valley. It's reshaped. The lake's edge is now a delta, splayed open like fingers losing grip. And the old cave, it's cut off water now, flows between you and its entrance, a cold, fast moat that wasn't there yesterday. Maybe the fish knew, maybe they left on purpose, or maybe they're trapped now too. You hear a call, distant, not human. A guttural growl from upstream. Could be a bird. Could be something older. You pick up the pace. Ahead, a tree has fallen across a narrow gorge. You inch across the trunk, arms wide, hoping no one's watching. On the other side, you find another cairn. This one's new. Not ancient, stone still wet. A single fishbone rests on top. You don't touch it. You sit beside it and listen. And finally, under the roar of the rerouted river, you hear it, a whistle. Faint, strained, distant, but there. A survivor. You don't know where it's coming from. Could be the lake, the cave, or somewhere upstream, where the river still remembers how to behave. But you do know this, the fish haven't given up yet. Neither will you. You remember her mostly by the sound. Not her voice, her songs. Low and reedy, like wind passing through reed stalks. She never spoke loud, never hurried. She was the kind of person who could hush a mammoth calf with a single note and send otters into fits of giggles with a second. They said she had fish blood, that her ears could hear weather before it began. You never saw her angry, never saw her afraid. But you did see her sing into the mouth of a dead fish once and watch a dozen live ones gather like she was gossiping with them. Her name was Enwa, and if the fish could whistle, she was the one who taught them how. You find her hut now, or what's left of it. Buried under snow logs, caved in the reindeer hide roof, flapping like a forgotten flag. You push through the wreckage gently, not to loot, to listen. And there it is, her flute, carved from bone, wrapped in sinew, capped at the end with a plug of moss. You blow into it softly out of habit, and it shrills immediately, 3 clear notes, slurred like a lullaby. The air shifts around you. Historians still debate whether such flutes were strictly musical or if they mimicked animal calls as a survival trick. But the way the air reacts now, as if waiting for the next line, you're convinced this was communication. You walk the perimeter of the hut, careful not to disturb anything still watching. You find the otter stone's neck, smooth black ones, stacked in 3s, wet, even in dry weather. She said they stayed moist from the inside out, like they know where water ought to be. You crouch by the bank near her back wall where she used to sing during storms. The water is lower here, calmer. You play the flute again. This time the response is immediate. A ripple, then a splash, then 3 tiny heads rise from the muck otters. Younger than you remember. Could be descendants, could be listeners. They don't flee. They blink, bob, and wait. So you sing again. The notes feel old but alive, like trying on a stranger's coat and finding it still fits. The otters chirp. Then impossibly from beneath them a hum. A fish, or maybe more than one. They're too low to see, but they're there. You press the flute to your lips, switch notes, lengthen the last. The otters twirl like drunks at a snow dance, and below them the lake thrums softly. Enwa was right, you can't control fish, but you can ask. Fun fact, scientists have found that human infants respond calmly to fish-like tonal lullabies even before they can speak. One theory. We evolved to find that sound comforting because it meant water, safety, food, and in deep time, home. You sit there for an hour, maybe more, flute across your lap, the lake singing back just loud enough to keep you curious. Somewhere upstream, another whistle pierces the wind, a warning maybe, or a request. The otters are gone now, vanished as easily as they came. The wind shifts again. Snow begins to fall. Slow, patient flakes. You stand and wrap Enwa's flute carefully as if it might bite. The fish aren't silent, not tonight. But they're not singing for you either. They're singing with you. They say the ice worms came first. Not in the first creature to crawl from slime kind of way, but in the they were already here when we found the fish kind of way. You thought it was just another tale to scare kids away from glacier cracks, mind your step, or the bone worms will borrow your songs. You never believed it. Not until now. You've been following a tunnel. Not a full cave too narrow, too deliberate. It weaves under the old lake ridge a tight squeeze with walls that sweat and breathe. You wedge through sideways, breath short, scraping past stone like a beetle in denial. And then suddenly, it opens up. A hollow space round and packed with spindly fossilized tubes, hundreds of them. Thin as fingers, coiling through the earth like someone tried to lace the land shut from the inside. You aim your lantern shard and the light dances off their surfaces. That's when you see it. Fish bones. Lots of them. Nestled beside the tubes. Jawless light full of those now familiar whistle chambers. Arranged, not randomly, parallel, facing the same direction, all curved slightly inward. Like they were listening. Or hiding. You crouch and run your hand along the tunnel wall. It's smooth in places, almost worked. And then your palm comes away sticky. Not wet. Sticky. There's still something alive in here. Historians still debate whether the so-called ice worm networks were actually ancient burrowing invertebrates, geophysical anomalies, or a combination of permafrost shifts and early mammal activity. But here, with the smell of rot and memory and music, you're inclined to believe the worms had culture. You find something else half buried in frozen loam. A flute, but not carved by human hands. It's grown. A fish bone, yes, but etched and expanded by the same worms that carved these tunnels. Openings where there shouldn't be. Spirals that match the tubes around you. You raise it, hesitate, then blow. The sound it makes is wrong. High-pitched trembly layered with overtones like something trying to escape its own throat. You drop it reflexively. The sound doesn't stop. It rings in the chamber like you woke something up. And then you hear it. A slither. No footsteps. No echo. Just the faint, deliberate drag of something shifting through ancestral memory. You freeze. Not because you're scared. Okay, yes, a little because you're scared, but also because you want to hear what it does next. Nothing. The slither stops. You back out slowly. The sound follows for a few seconds, then fades. By the time you reach the outside, your breath has turned to steam and your hands are numb. You sit against a tree and think. Fun fact, the oldest known musical instruments, 40,000-year-old flutes, were made from bird bone and mammoth ivory. But what if long before that music was grown instead of carved? The worms didn't just make tunnels, they made instruments. And the fish, they learned to answer. You glance at the bone flute you dropped earlier, no longer singing, no longer twitching. But the memory of the sound lingers, and the storm you think is closer now. It began raining 3 days ago, and it hasn't stopped. Not the heavy cinematic kind of rain with dramatic thunder and heroic escapes. No, this is the slow kind, the kind that seeps. It's the kind of rain that doesn't even look like rain, just air that forgot how to be dry. Every inch of your skin feels peeled. You've lashed together a crude lean-to from mammoth-hide and saplings perched just above the widening lake delta. You're watching the shoreline erase itself hour by hour. Fish once sang here. Now not even the worms dare to hum. It's not even that the fish are gone. It's that their silence feels intentional. They were warning you, now they're waiting. You haven't slept properly since the first night it began. The wind moans sometimes, not loud, just enough to remind you that it could be worse. The cave is unreachable now, surrounded on all sides by water and fast slumping earth. The mammoth wall washed over. Stones tumbled down, the cairns vanished. Oh, only your lean-to and the cold fire pit remain. You lie back and listen to the steady drum of droplets on hide. For a moment it sounds like whispering. For a moment it sounds like language. You almost believe it. Historians still debate whether long-term storms in the Ice Age were global phenomena, local climate collapses, or isolated supercell patterns triggered by melt disruption. No one knows how many were listening back then. Fewer know who survived them. But this storm, this one feels personal. On the second night you hear it again, a whistle. Faint, far, down in the reeds where the old river used to twist. You grab Enwa's flute and play a response. One short note, then two, then silence. The whistle comes again, louder now. But it's not a song. It's a pattern. 3 short tones, then nothing, then 3 more. A call, or a warning. You answer. 3 tones. Low, cautious. The reply comes faster now, like relief or panic. You dash toward the sound, slipping through mud boots, sucking into the earth like it wants to keep you. The rain stings now. Every droplet feels needle-sharp. You hold your breath, slide down a slope, and land in standing water. Then movement. Silver flashes beneath the surface. Dozens of fish, not swimming, drifting. Like they've gone slack, like their job is done. You freeze. The sound changes. From whistles to clicks. Sharp, syncopated, familiar. It matches the fishbone flute from the worm tunnel. You pull it from your pouch, hesitating. It's still warm. You blow. This time the note fits. Not beautiful, but whole. And the fish move. Slow together, spiraling in wide arcs as the clicks thicken into a low, droning hum. A rhythm builds. Not from the wind, not from the rain, from them. The storm is in full tantrum now. Trees sway, waters rise, but the fish keep singing. It's louder than the thunder. Somehow, not in pitch and pressure, like standing next to a heartbeat too big for your body. Fun fact, some fish can detect vibrations from kilometers away using their lateral line's neuromasts that read pressure and movement like words. That's not a fact anymore. That's a fact you're inside. You crouch in the water, flute in your lap, soaked and stunned. The lake isn't just reacting, it's orchestrating. And tonight is its finale. Then at dawn, the music stops. All at once. No fading, just absence. And the silence that follows feels worse than the storm ever did. You wake to quiet, not silence quiet. There's a difference. Silence is heavy, quiet is after. The rain has stopped. The lean-to collapsed sometime in the night, and you're wrapped in it like a discarded coat. You peel it off, slowly blinking into the gray. The landscape has changed. Again. Trees stand in puddles where there used to be dry grass. The lake has swollen, chewing its way through ridges and roots. The cave entrance has caved in. The cairns are gone for good. And the fish, gone too. No sound, no shimmer, not even a ripple. But you're not alone. The prints are fresh, not human, not bird, not mammoth. These are broader, deeper, round, padded with long rear claws and a sway to their gait that says patient. Massive, hungry, bear. You move cautiously, following the trail. It doesn't lead away from the lake. It curves back toward it. You spot a low grove just off the new shoreline, trees tangled like gossiping elders, branches twisted from wind and time. The prints end there. You drop low and creep forward. The grove is unusually still. Even the air feels reluctant to stir. You pause behind a trunk and peek around. And there he is, a bear, not young, not massive, middle-aged if animals had such terms. His coat is matted, his eyes oddly alert. He's not hunting, he's waiting. He's crouched near the water's edge, head tilted sideways like he's listening to a joke that only the mud can tell. Then he growls, not loud, low, long, and you realize it matches the last whistle you heard before dawn. Historians still debate whether prehistoric animals like cave bears responded to seismic or infrasonic signals in the environment, or if stories about them hearing storms are just poetic exaggerations. But you're watching it now. A bear listening to water that isn't speaking anymore. You move closer. He doesn't flinch. Instead, he dips one paw into the water and taps. Not random, not playful. 3 soft slaps. Then one still pause, then again, slap, 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 pause. It's the same pattern the fish used, the same one you played, the one the storm answered. You sit, just far enough not to disturb him, just close enough to believe what you're seeing. The bear isn't waiting for prey. He's waiting for a reply. You remember a legend one Enwa told? After too much fermented pine root, a bear who wouldn't eat until the fish sang. Said he was cursed. Said his mother had married a glacier and taught him patience. You never believed it. You believe it now. The bear stops tapping. His ears twitch, and he growls again, a deep vibrato that rolls across the lake and disappears into the trees. Then he lies down, not in defeat, not in sleep, just lying, like he knows he won't get an answer. Not today, but still he asks. Fun fact, modern brown bears sometimes rest near rivers during salmon migrations, not to hunt, but to watch. Behavioral enrichment. Curiosity or memory. You sit with him a while longer. No fish come. No wind answers. But the bear doesn't move. And neither do you. You don't mean to find the fossils. You're actually looking for dry socks. Or firewood. Or maybe just a reason not to walk straight into the newly expanded lake. But the mudslide had other plans. It's west of the bear grove along an outcrop that used to be a sleeping ridge for caribou. Now it's a churned-up scar of broken stone, tangled roots, and exposed earth like the world exhaled too hard and forgot to stop. And right there, pressed into the damp wall of clay, are the fish. Dozens, maybe more. You brush one free with the gentleness of someone cleaning a wound, and you freeze. This fish, it has no mouth. Not chewed off, not eroded, designed that way. The head tapers into sealed bones, smooth and domed, like the front of a hammer. But the rest of the skull? A maze. Tiny holes, delicate ridges, strange spirals carved by nature or something stranger. You touch one of the vents and your finger tingles. Probably imagination. Maybe not. You lift another fossil. Same shape, same missing mouth. Holes all down the sides like a flute made by a sculptor who's never heard music but desperately wants to. You sit down. The clay sucks at your boots like it has opinions. Historians still debate whether these vent-holed fossils were a mutation, a defensive adaptation, or simply a strange branch of prehistoric evolution. The problem is they only ever show up here. This region, this lake, this now-dead ecosystem of whistling fish and bears who don't trust their hunger. You line up 3 of the fossils in front of you. The pattern is unmistakable. No jaws, just chambers. No predators, scars. These fish didn't fight. They listened. You press one to your ear, nothing. You blow across another, nothing. But then, just as you set the third one down, it hums. Barely. Like the wind caught its breath in the right place for 1 second too long. You snatch it back up, startled. The hum's gone. You exhale sharply through its largest hole. The sound it makes is like nothing you've heard before, tinny, yes, but layered. Almost like it echoes itself. You try again. Short bursts. The fossil replies with low fluting warbles too rhythmic to be random. It feels like someone else is answering through your own breath. You laugh nervously. Then you stop. Because the bear is there, just across the ridge, standing half out of shadow, watching you. His head tilts just slightly. He's listening. Again. You raise the fossil blow once more. The bear grunts. Not a warning. Not anger. Recognition. You lower the fossil. The bear stays a moment longer, then turns and vanishes back toward the lake. You want to follow him, but first you tuck the fossils carefully into a fur-lined pouch. They don't whistle now. But they might again. Fun fact, many fish skulls contain structures called otoliths, calcium deposits that help with balance and hearing. But nothing like this. These weren't for hearing the world. These were for being heard. You rise coated in mud and wonder. The fossils don't sing again, but the silence they leave behind feels earned. You camp where no one should. Right on the lake's edge where the old shoreline collapsed weeks ago, where half the trees lean away from the water like they're trying not to listen anymore. You clear a patch of ground just above the new floodline, and that's where you find the sleeping ring. It's subtle at first, just a curve of flattened stones. But the shape is too neat, a perfect half circle not formed by erosion or accident. And as you sweep away the moss and drift, you realize it's not alone. Three more rings, all the same size, all aimed toward the lake. And in the center of each ring, a single polished stone concave like a listening bowl. You lie down beside one curious. Press your head to the center. Nothing. Then the wind picks up, and you hear it. Not loud, not a voice, just tone, resonance. As if the air itself is singing in a register only the stones understand. It's faint, but you feel it in your teeth before you hear it with your ears. Enwa would have called this a sound nest. Historians still debate whether ancient dwellings were arranged for acoustics or just for wind protection. But these circles weren't made to keep anything out. They were built to let something in. You lie on your back, eyes closed, and the sound begins to shape itself. Patterns. Pauses, soft pulses like distant breathing. You hear fish again? Not literal ones, just their rhythm, their memory. You hum a note, just one. The stone under your ear echoes it back slightly, altered but familiar. Like it remembered that sound from before you were born. You sit up fast, no one's there, but the feeling lingers. Later that night, you build a small fire just outside the farthest circle. It crackles awkwardly, refusing to warm the air, but it keeps the shadows respectful. You think of those who must have slept here. Their heads pointed toward the lake. Not for defense, not even for comfort. To hear. One ring per sleeper, no walls, no tools, just stones and sound. There are no bone flutes here. No carved whistles, just the land, the wind, and the sense that every breath you take is part of someone else's old lullaby. Fun fact. In certain megalithic sites, sound carries unusually well-audible echoes, up to 300 meters in stone rings, sometimes even without a noticeable source. Acoustic archaeologists say it's design, others say it's luck. You lie down again just outside the last ring. The wind shifts, and for the briefest moment, you swear you hear them voices just beyond the edge of intelligibility. Not words, not language, but intention. Then it fades. But now you know the truth. They didn't sleep here because it was safe. They slept here because the lake spoke to them, and some of them maybe never woke up. You've come full circle without meaning to, or maybe the circle came to you. You're back near the mammoth wall, what's left of it. The carving faces are smeared now, half swallowed by earth and thaw. What tusks once stretched proudly into the sky now slump like old branches. But something new catches your eye. Footprints. Not yours, not the bear's. Wide, flat, splayed toes. Mammoth. You blink hard. It's not possible. The last mammoth died long before your grandparents' grandparents found this valley. But here, it is a trail of prints pressed into fresh melt, looping inland from the lake, then doubling back. You follow. They're crisp, too crisp. But soon you notice something odd. Every time the trail nears the water's edge, it changes direction. Like the mammoth, not a real one, but perhaps someone pretending was following a sound. Or maybe avoiding one. You crest a ridge and freeze. It's a shallow basin, half flooded. And at its center stands a stone formation, 4 long slabs set upright, meeting at their peaks like a crooked shelter. You descend slowly, boots squelching in mud. Inside, the air is thick with stillness. Not quiet, stillness. And beneath the water's surface, dozens of fish swirl, not swimming, not darting, just drifting in place like they're waiting. And then they move all at once. No fear, no scatter, just slow, precise positioning, forming rings, spirals, shapes. Each movement echoes another. And high on the slope, the mammoth prints stop. Beside them, another cairn. This one different. 2 stones, no fishbone. Just a smooth black oval at the top. When you touch it, the wind begins to blow, not hard, just enough. And from the lake below you hear it. A whistle. But it's not fish. It's lower, wider. A mammoth calling, or someone mimicking one. You drop to your knees listening. Historians still debate whether extinct megafauna like mammoths communicated in infrasonic ways we still don't understand. and some theorize that ancient peoples might have mimicked those tones intentionally or not to synchronize with the rhythms of the land. You believe it now. Because this sound isn't a warning, it's an invitation. You hum in return. Not the fish tone, not Enwa's song, something new, or very, very old. And for a heartbeat, everything aligns. The water stills. The fish pause. The wind carries your note. And something out there, maybe mammoth, maybe myth, responds. You sit there trembling. Because the question has never been whether the fish warned the mammoths. The question is whether the mammoths listened, and what they might have heard that we never did. You return to the lake one last time, though. It's not really a lake anymore. It's become something else, larger, softer at the edges, folded around the valley like a breath finally exhaled. There's no shoreline now, only degrees of wetness. No fish, no bears, no wind. Even the clouds seem to have stopped moving, like they're listening too. You step carefully along the mud-spotted path, holding the pouch of fossil flutes close to your chest. They're warm, still, always warm now, as if they remember something the world is forgetting. You settle where the sound circles used to be. The stones are there, though many have fallen. You place the pouch in the center of the last intact ring and kneel beside it. You don't take out the fossils. You don't need to. The air already knows what they are. You lie back. The earth receives you with the softness of something ancient and unbothered. The air tastes clean. The silence doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels settled. From somewhere below, beneath layers of water and time, a hum begins. Not music, not signal, just presence. A reminder that something is still moving, still listening. You close your eyes. A ripple brushes your boot. Another. The fish are back, maybe. Or maybe the lake just remembers them well enough to simulate the sensation. Either way, the rhythm is familiar. 3 soft nudges. 1 pause. Again. You open your mouth to speak, but nothing comes. Not because you're scared. Because you don't need to. The lake answers anyway. Fun fact, researchers have recently begun to study how memory might be stored in ecosystems themselves, not just in species, but in patterns, ripples, wind channels. Animal migrations that repeat even after the original reason disappears. You wonder now if this is what it means to truly listen to history, not through books or bones, but through quiet, patterned touch. You feel a breeze, no storm in it, just air passing through. The fish are humming again. Or maybe it's the mammoth, or maybe it's you. You breathe, and it breathes with you. The question never really mattered, not the one about fish and storms, because what mattered was that something tried to warn us, and now at last you're still enough to hear it. The journey begins at the edge of an ancient glacial lake where strange pre-storm whistles rise from beneath the ice. You, the last listener, chase that sound first to the frozen waters, then beneath them, where eyeless fish hum with ancient rhythm. Deep within nearby caves and scattered across forgotten shelters, the evidence builds. The sounds are real, and something human or not once listened religiously. Across 15 chapters, you uncover bone flutes shaped like fish skulls. Fossilized species with no mouths but resonating chambers, and legends of people like Enwa and Tellen who sang with otters and carried storm teeth. Alongside reindeer-skinned singers and bear sentinels who wait for fish to speak, you unravel a haunting truth sound was survival. Fish didn't just whistle before storms, they became part of the warning system, and perhaps they weren't alone. Glacial floods reshape the land. The lake swells, the fish vanish, then return. Meanwhile, mammoth carvings and sound ring camps hint that the past civilizations designed their lives to listen literally. The bear listens too. So do you. And beneath it all, tunnels dug by ancient worms echo the eerie hums in stone. By the end, you lie beside the water, no longer trying to answer the question, do Ice Age fish really whistle before storms? Because the answer is in the rhythm, in the silence, in the fact that the earth hums back now. Something has always been speaking. We just stopped hearing.